In the present day, a carriage appears to have been attacked by monsters. There, a young defenseless girl is at the mercy of goblins. But just when things seem hopeless, a black figure steps forward to protect her. Skip past a few years, our lonely virgin main protagonist, Lost, is unexpectedly invited by a girl to form a group with her, leaving everyone in the Adventurers Guild completely shocked. The healer, who's holding a recruitment sign, is taken by surprise as the girl. The girl then shows off her skills in front of him, making it clear she means business. Slightly embarrassed by the situation, Lost introduces himself as a healer or something similar. However, Amherst, a guild employee, grabs Narcina by the shoulders, asking if she realizes she's inviting the useless virgin into her group. According to Amherst, Lost is only capable of basic healing and nothing more. An orphan similar to you who came from the labyrinth. He's been an adventurer since childhood but hasn't developed his skills beyond the basics, earning him a reputation as an incompetent. Worse still, Lost once joined a group called the Lightning Blades, only to be kicked out due to his lack of ability. Because of all this, Lost is known as the most useless adventurer in Mard. Amherst warns Narcina that unless she's wealthy, relying on Lost will drain her resources. In response, Narcina confidently pulls out a bag of money, reassuring Amherst that she'll be fine. The guild employee warns her to be cautious with her money in such a shady place, full of sketchy characters lurking in the shadows. Grateful for the advice, Narcina thanks Amherst, but remains determined to form a group with Lost, stating she made her decision long ago. Amherst, intrigued by her persistence, hands them the registration form for group members. While Lost signs, Narcina gazes at him, feeling like she's finally found the person she's been searching for. Caught off guard when Lost passes her the form, she jumps slightly, having been lost in her thoughts. Once both names are on the form, Amherst asks for the service fee, which Lost pays. With everything settled, Narcina eagerly announces that their group is officially formed and extends her hand to greet her new companion. Though confused by her enthusiasm, Lost politely shakes her hand. Without delay, the two head to the Mard Labyrinth. Along the way, Lost explains that no one has ever reached the end of the labyrinth, so the final boss remains unknown. Many parts of the dungeon are unexplored, offering countless opportunities for adventure, and it makes Mard the largest labyrinth city in the region. Narcina, however, wonders if it's a good idea to head straight into the dungeon, given Amherst's earlier suggestion to try the western field first. Lost explains that many areas around Mard experience monster attacks due to the magical energy leaking from the labyrinth, such as the eastern mountains, the northern forests, and the southern swamp. The western field does have weaker creatures, but it's so vast that finding them is difficult. In contrast, the labyrinth is packed with creatures, and as long as they stick to the early sections, the monsters shouldn't be much of a threat. After their journey, the duo finally arrives at the entrance of the labyrinth. Narcina confidently takes the lead as any skilled martial artist would, leaving Lost to provide support. While he's fine with this, Lost silently questions whether this beginner can really handle the monsters inside. However, it quickly becomes clear that Narcina is more than capable, as she relentlessly obliterates every monster they encounter, even striking a flashy victory pose after each battle. Impressed, Lost realizes she's not to be underestimated. Meanwhile, they collect the items dropped by the defeated monsters as they continue through the dungeon. The healer explains to Narcina that the items they collected are magic stones, which adventurers sell to the guild. The guild then uses the magic within these stones to create various items. Narcina, though skilled in combat, admits she didn't know this despite it being basic knowledge for adventurers. She asks how much the stones are worth, and Lost tells her that the ones dropped by goblins aren't very valuable. To make more money, they'll need to defeat stronger monsters that drop pricier items. Still, what they've gathered should be enough to cover their lodging for the night. Narcina, eager for more action, suggests they continue deeper into the labyrinth, promising to protect her healer no matter what. They press on, and soon, Narcina narrowly avoids falling into a trap. Lost, quick to react, places a stone on a block to trigger the mechanism, revealing a pit filled with iron spikes and unfortunate adventurers who weren't as lucky. Shocked, Narcina asks how he spotted the trap, and Lost explains that the block looked darker than the others, raising his suspicion. While she thought trap detection was a thief's skill, Lost admits that after years of adventuring, he's picked up a few tricks. As they proceed, the duo encounters an orc, which looks oddly similar to your mother and much stronger than anything they should be facing at this part of the labyrinth. Lost suggests they can defeat it if they work together. Without hesitation, Narcina charges at the orc, landing a powerful spinning kick to its chest. Though it feels like kicking a stone wall, she's able to dodge its slower attacks. However, when the orc slams its club into the ground, shards of rock fly everywhere, one of which strikes Narcina's arm. The orc then pins her against the wall, ready to deliver a fatal blow. Just in time, Lost steps in and defeats the orc with his sword. Narcina, shocked and grateful, asks if he's really just a healer. Lost, playing it off, explains that he's learned to fight after years of adventuring. He then notices her injury from the rock shard and heals her arm. Afterward, they collect the magic stone dropped by the orc, a much more valuable item than the goblin stones. Despite their haul, Marcena wants to delve deeper into the labyrinth, face even tougher challenges, and Lost doesn't object. By late afternoon, they return to the guild with a large collection of magic stones. Amherst, the receptionist, is stunned to see how many items they gathered, especially the orc stone. She accuses Lost of recklessly taking the rookie into the deeper parts of the dungeon, but Lost explains that the orc was unexpectedly near the entrance. Amherst believes him as she's heard rumors of strange happenings in the Marred Labyrinth. However, Amherst, being in a lower-ranking position within the guild, hasn't been informed of the details regarding the strange happenings in the labyrinth. Setting the conversation aside, she asks if Lost and Marcena want to sell all their magic stones. But when Lost confirms, Amherst beams with excitement and quickly arranges their payment. Marcena, puzzled by her enthusiasm, asks Lost why the receptionist is so happy. Lost explains that guild employees earn a commission when adventurers under their management sell items to the guild. This means they've done Amherst a big favor, which is why she's no longer upset about them disobeying her earlier advice to head to the western field instead of the labyrinth. With no use dwelling on the past, Amherst hands them their payment, a sum 10 times larger than what Lost was used to receiving from his previous expeditions. In that moment, he realizes that his old group, the Lightning Blades, had been cheating him the whole time. Marcena, irritated, comments that the guild should ensure all group members receive their fair share for the work they've done. Amherst responds that the guild only mediates payments if the group pays the required fee for such services. Lost, however, decides to let it go, as the Lightning Blades are part of his past and it's time to move on. With that, the duo bids farewell to Amherst. Meanwhile, a man upstairs named Handsome watches Lost as he leaves the guild. A little later, while Amherst gleefully counts her coins like a crackhead, Handsome approaches her and scolds her for letting Lost join a new group. Amherst clarifies that she didn't recommend the healer to anyone. Marcena was the one who insisted on forming a group with him. Later, Lost and Marcena head to a nearby tavern, where they're greeted by a young waitress. However, the waitress seems less than thrilled to see her friend Lost accompanied by another girl. Afterward, Lost approaches Mary, the waitress's mother, to book a room. The innkeeper asks if they want to share a room or have separate ones. Marcena feels a bit anxious, but Lost promptly says they'll take separate rooms. Marcena quietly admits to herself that she would have preferred sharing a room, but she keeps it to herself. As they head to their respective quarters, they wish each other good night. Lying in bed, Marcena's thoughts drift back to her childhood, recalling the day her carriage overturned on the road and Lost healed her injured arm. It was that moment that inspired her to become an adventurer and find Lost, determined to protect him in return. Since then, she trained rigorously and came straight to Mard upon hearing that Lost had been kicked out of his group. Now with Lost in her group, Marcena feels a bit disheartened that he doesn't seem to recognize her, as she's changed so much since their childhood encounter. Furthermore, despite all of her training, it seems like Lost doesn't need her help as much as she thought. He's proven to be much stronger than the rumors suggested. Still, Marcena remains committed to keeping her promise and staying by his side. She doesn't understand why people call him useless when it's clear Lost has real talent. Looking back, we are shown how his former party was in terrible shape after being decimated by a powerful dragon. There, he managed to heal one of the girls, but couldn't neutralize the poison in her system. He reassured her that rest would eventually cure it, but this only frustrated her further. The party began to fall apart since their leader needed everyone ready to fight, yet the girl was in no condition for battle. Tensions rose when Lost pointed out they would need antidotes, which they couldn't afford. Frustrated, the leader insulted Lost, calling him useless, and ordered the mage to attack the beast with everything she had. However, her fireball only enraged the creature more, and the leader, furious at his team's incompetence, concluded that leading such a group of failures was impossible. He retreated, advising the others to do the same. The mage quickly fled, and Lost stayed behind to assist the injured girl. Later, Lost was kicked out of the Lightning Sword party, taking the blame for their failure to defeat the Hydra. They claimed his abilities as a healer were inadequate, though Lost pointed out that their defeat was due to the team's partying the night before. This only escalated the arguments. The leader left it to the mage to decide who was at fault, and feeling pressured, she placed the blame on Lost. Now in the present, Lost reflects on how this wasn't the first time something like this had happened. 6 years earlier, his reputation as the most incompetent healer was already well known. Despite this, Lost never gave up on his dream of becoming a great adventurer. He was eventually invited to join a party, but it turned out they didn't need a healer. Instead, they used him as bait to lure monsters, a common fate for labyrinth orphans like Lost. However, he wasn't even good at being bait, and the party was wiped out. Lost had always hated pain and feared death, but when he saw a young girl in danger, he pushed those fears aside. To this day, he doesn't know why he ran to help her, but he fought the goblins as best he could before being knocked unconscious. When he woke, he realized it wasn't him who had saved the girl, it was a group of knights. This reinforced his belief that he was still incompetent. But the girl saw things differently. She thanked Lost, explaining that his actions had bought them enough time for the knights to arrive and save them. Lost healed her, and upon hearing how poorly he was treated, the girl cried for him. Sympathetic to his plight, she made a vow to become an adventurer herself, so she could team up with him and protect him. Coming from a noble family, Lost knew her dream was impossible, but her words still gave him hope. Determined, he sought out a teacher and began training. He learned basic healing techniques and other important skills that every adventurer should have. Eventually, Lost felt confident that he had become a competent adventurer, and that's when he joined the Lightning Sword party. He credited the girl for keeping him motivated and preventing him from giving up on his dream. Thinking about her now, Lost realizes that he's glad he didn't give up, especially since that decision led him to meet Narcina. Just as Lost finishes reflecting, Narcina arrives and the two head out for breakfast. Afterward, they venture into the labyrinth, planning to delve even deeper than before. When they reach a teleportation circle, Narcina sees one for the first time. Curious, she wonders if it can send them anywhere, but Lost explains that these circles can only connect to other places with teleportation circles. Narcina jokes that it would be better if they were placed in towns, but quickly realizes that doing so would make it easier for monsters to attack. Lost then corrects Narcina, explaining that monsters can't actually use teleportation circles. The reason these circles aren't found in towns is because the knowledge required to create them was lost hundreds of years ago, and no one today has the skill to make new ones. After that, they use the teleportation circle and arrive at the middle levels of the labyrinth, where the monsters are much stronger, so they have to proceed with caution. They soon encounter a monster, but Narcina's attack is ineffective. Lost explains that it's a lich, a spirit-based monster that lacks a physical form, making it immune to standard attacks. Monsters like this are difficult for adventurers who can't use magic, and Lost suggests they should flee. However, Narcina is determined to fight, confident in her abilities. The two devise a plan. Lost distracts the lich and lures it toward Narcina. Through intense training, some humans can manipulate ki and inner energy, allowing martial artists like Narcina to even attack spiritual entities. Using this power, Narcina delivers a devastating blow and destroys the lich. The two celebrate, though Narcina is injured. Lost uses a magic tool that enhances healing, restoring her health. The lich leaves behind a valuable magic core, and Narcina wonders how much it will fetch at the guild. When they return, Amherst, the guild's administrator, is once again impressed by the treasures they've brought in. After receiving a substantial reward, Lost and Narcina head back into town, where they stumble upon a heated argument between adventurers. Lost comments that troublemaking adventurers have been causing unrest in town lately, but he decides there's nothing they can do and suggests they treat themselves to a fancy meal. When they arrive at a restaurant, the waitress questions whether Lost can afford such an expensive meal, but he confidently tells her to get him a beer. Narcina also wants to indulge, but a young waitress informs her that they don't serve alcohol to minors. While feasting, Narcina brings up something she's been curious about. She saw a tall structure in town with no doors or windows, and there are several of these strange buildings. It doesn't seem to be a monument. Lost admits he doesn't know what they are either, but reveals that he once asked some craftsmen about it. They said they were building the structures, but even they didn't know who commissioned them. The project was initiated by a series of agents, each hiding the identity of the true client. Though mysterious, the structures haven't bothered anyone, so people don't question them. Lost thinks the town should focus on building a city wall instead, but Narcina prefers the city as it is. She points out that with so many adventurers around, the town doesn't need walls. Any invaders would be swiftly dealt with. That night, the pair prepare to sleep. Narcina wants to tell Lost something, but chickens out at the last moment. She had hoped to share a room with him, but can't bring herself to ask. Meanwhile, Lost reflects on how fortunate he is to have a reliable partner. He also wonders if the girl he met years ago will ever return, though he acknowledges that without her, he wouldn't have made it this far as an adventurer. The next day, the leader of the Lightning Sword party introduces a new healer. Though the other members are less than thrilled, the leader remains upbeat, declaring that this time they will defeat the Hydra. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, a mysterious man receives word from someone named Handsome. Handsome reports that someone called the Sleeping Beauty is in this city and has teamed up with Lost. Alarmed by this, the man orders Handsome to ensure Lost is expelled from the city as soon as possible, fearing that time is running out. This then marks the end of today's anime recap. If you enjoyed the video and want more of it, please support the channel by leaving a like and subscribe. Let's help us reach our current goal of 20k subscribers.